By the end of this video, you should be able to write your concluding paragraph for your argumentative essay. There are 3 parts to your concluding paragraph. The first is creating cohesion. This is making sure that the reader understands that your essay is one whole piece versus 5 paragraphs that don't quite fit together. Significance. This is where you're going to make sure that the reader understands the significance of your argument. And then the call to action. This is your opportunity to tell the reader what you want them to think, do, be, know, or understand as a result of reading your essay. So as we get started, step number 1 is going to be create cohesion. The word cohesion means that something feels like one whole versus several parts. I want you to think about a puzzle piece. So if you think about each of your paragraphs, your introductory paragraph, body paragraphs, and your concluding paragraph, it should feel like those are puzzle pieces that are fitting together versus separate pieces. So when we start to look at how do we use our conclusion to create cohesion to make it feel like one whole piece, I'm going to come back to the hook. Right? I want to come back to what did I introduce in my introductory paragraph that I could come back to in my conclusion so that the reader understands that the intro is really tied to the conclusion. So let's look at my essay. I want to remind you, in my introductory paragraph about Athenian democracy and whether it's fair or equitable, I start with this quote from Pericles. Let's read a little bit. After a particularly bloody victory during the Peloponnesian War, Pericles, one of ancient Athens' most beloved leaders, shouted, "Our form of government is called a democracy because its administration is in the hands not of a few, but of the whole people." Overwhelmed with pride in their country and the victory they'd won, Pericles' words were repeated and repeated and repeated. This statement has defined how we understand democracy in ancient Athens today. Yet, was it true? So I started my introductory paragraph, my very first paragraph where I introduced my argument. I started that with Pericles' quote. So what better way to create cohesion than to come back to Pericles? So in creating cohesion, my first sentence or 2, I'm going to come back to Pericles' quote. So I am going to say Pericles had every right to be proud of his city-state because I have just proven in my essay that Pericles was wrong and that ancient Athens was not actually that fair and equitable, that they actually weren't doing that good of a job of making sure that power was in the hands of not a few but of the whole people. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about how Pericles should be proud. Pericles had every right to be proud of his city-state. Democracy was absolutely more equitable than any other form of government attempted in the ancient world. So that's how I created cohesion. The reader has read my introductory paragraph, they remember that Pericles quote, and now we're coming back full circle to Pericles. Step 2 in writing my concluding paragraph is going to be to discuss the significance. This is where I'm going to reinforce and build on my main arguments. I'm going to make sure that the reader understands my main argument. I don't here need to outline my supporting arguments. You do not need to remind your reader of your supporting arguments in your concluding paragraph, but you do need to come back to your central claim, your big umbrella statement. I'm also going to describe the significance here of my arguments for the stakeholders or for the readers, and maybe add some additional insights, implications, questions, or challenges. So my creating cohesion, remember, is that Pericles had every right to be proud of his city-state. Democracy was absolutely more equitable than any other form of government attempted in the ancient world. So here is my significance now. I'm adding just a bit more, and I'm helping the reader understand the significance. The visionaries who crafted what democracy would look like in ancient Athens were fighting to put power in the hands of all citizens. However, when they defined a citizen, they ignored half of the people living in Athens. One of the things I want you to notice here is that I am reminding the reader of my central claim without actually restating it. So remember that my central claim was this, that power in ancient Athens was in the hands of a few. That's my big umbrella statement. So rather than saying it word for word, I'm kind of getting back to it without saying it directly. So I said, however, when they defined a citizen, they ignored half of the people living in Athens. Okay, step 3. After I have created cohesion, I've talked about the significance and I reminded the reader of my big umbrella central argument. Here's my call to action. This is where I'm going to tell the reader what I want them to do or think or believe after reading my essay. So here's my call to action. Ancient Athens will always be known. Sorry, that should be always be known as the birthplace of democracy. My hope is that it will also be a reminder that our work is not done. So there's my call to action. I'm asking the reader to remember that Athenian democracy should be a reminder that our work is not done. Democracy currently is not yet fair or equitable. So my hope is that it will also be a reminder that our work is not done. Not unlike ancient Athens, our democracy in America today continues to deny all people an equal voice in government. As Pericles stated, so I'm even coming back to Pericles in my final statement. As Pericles stated, democracy means that power is in the hands not of a few, but of the whole people. So one of the most important things that your conclusion must do, and this is the way that you're going to get your exceeding standard, is that you really need to make sure that the reader feels like your introductory paragraph was written with your concluding paragraph. That throughout your essay, from your intro to your conclusion, there is a thread tying it all together. That it's clear that your central claim is not only proven throughout your essay, but that you come back to it in your conclusion. Okay, I want you to get started writing your conclusion. Remember that there are all of these resources on Schoology that you're welcome to access. Get started.